I noticed yesterday I always introduce these talks by saying, good afternoon everyone, welcome to the library. So I'll say that again, but in a slightly different way in order to seem a little bit different. Anyway, I welcome you all to Bilkent University Library and to our art gallery. Today we are here to hear Professor Sübidey Togan give the second library lunchtime lecture for this semester. And his title, which has changed a little bit slightly, but what I'm told is the correct and better one up here, Prospects of Turkey's Accession to the European Union. Professor Sübidey Togan graduated his bachelor's degree in economics at METU in 1967, and a few years later, in 1972, he received his PhD from Johns Hopkins University in the US. He subsequently worked and taught in Texas A&M University, back here in METU, Clarkson University in New York, and also the Kiel Institute of World Economics in Germany. In 1987, he joined Bilkent as Professor in Economics and as the first Dean of the Faculty of Economics, Social and Administrative Sciences, and he is currently the Director of the Center for International Economics here at Bilkent. He has published extensively, particularly in the area of world or international economics and the economy of Turkey. He has published numerous books and articles, and if you want, upstairs in the display cabinets you can see his articles and books. His most recent book, Economic Liberalization and Turkey, was published this year by Routledge. Today's topic, obviously very important subject for Turkey and for Turkish people. As far as I understand, Professor Togan will not go for a black and white yes or no approach. He will consider the bigger question of EU membership for Turkey and look at alternative options and what may be best for Turkey in the immediate future. Okay, I would ask you all, if possible, to switch off your cell phones, okay, in order that we do not interrupt the speaker, or at least switch them to silent mode. And we are hoping to have 20 or 50 minutes at the end of the talk for questions, because this is obviously a very important and debated subject. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Togan.
Thank you, David. It is a real pleasure to be here and talk about the EU accession process. But let me take the jacket off first. So, the title, as David said, is Prospects of Turkey's Accession to the European Union. So what I will do is, after some introductory remarks, I will emphasize the principles of sound economic policy. Sound economic policy, for those of you who are economists, may be quite simple. For those of you who are not, I will try to make it as clear as possible. And then I will emphasize why Turkey aims for EU membership and chances of EU membership, and then possible alternatives to EU accession in Turkey-EU relations, and then with some remarks I will conclude. So let me start with what has been happening recently. On May 29th, 2005, the French rejected the draft European Union Constitution by 55 to 45%. And a few days later, voters in Netherlands rejected the draft EU Constitution by 61 to 39%. Although the French and Dutch rejections of the European Constitution was not about potential Turkish membership of the EU, the results were used by some influential circles in the EU to argue that Turkish membership to the EU had to be postponed for some and probably very long time. It had been only in 1999 that the Helsinki European Council had recognized Turkey as a candidate on equal footing with other potential candidates. In December 2002, Copenhagen European Council had decided that the EU would open negotiations with Turkey without delay if the European Council in December 2004, on the basis of a report and recommendation from the Commission, decides that Turkey fulfills the Copenhagen political criteria. The EU leaders had agreed on December 16, 2004, to start the accession negotiations with Turkey from October 3, 2005. Right after the official launching of the EU accession negotiations, the screening process started, which lasted until October 2006. Thereafter, the Commission prepared the screening reports for each of the 35 chapters. In November 2006, the EU expressed concern over restrictions to the free movement of goods, including restrictions on means of transport to which Turkey had committed by signing the additional protocol to the Ankara Agreement. With no solution found, the European Council decided on December 14th and 15th of 2006 to suspend negotiations on 8 chapters relevant to Turkey's restrictions with regard to the Republic of Cyprus. It was also decided that no chapter would provisionally be closed until Turkey fulfilled its commitments under the additional protocol to the EU-Turkey Association Agreement. However, this did not mean that the process of negotiations was blocked. As of January 2007, the negotiations were back on track on the chapters that were not suspended. To date, only 13 out of the 35 chapters have been opened. And I should emphasize that the French have also blocked some of the other chapters, remaining chapters, and the Cyprus has also blocked some of the chapters. Thus, Turkey's accession talks have been dogged by a number of problems, and as a result, little progress could be achieved during the last 5 years. Perception that Turkey will not succeed in becoming a member of the EU during the foreseeable time is gaining ground both in Europe and also Turkey. Why does Turkey insist on membership in the EU if the chances of membership are so dim? If membership in the EU will not materialize, what are the alternatives for EU-Turkey relations? These are the type of questions I will deal. Now, I will emphasize first the aims, the principles of sound economic policy. So these are general remarks. It doesn't have to go to be related to the EU accession, but this is the main emphasis, and it should also give us some guidance for the EU-Turkey relations. Now, we say the aim of economic activity is to generate wealth for the country's citizens through the achievement of relatively high but sustainable economic growth measured by growth in real per capita income. Turkey is no exception. Turkey wants to close the economic gap between it and the rich countries in the world. During the 50 years prior to 1980, Turkey tried to achieve this goal through planning and import substitution. As these ideas lost ground, Turkey switched over to more market-oriented policies in 1980 that emphasized the role of price system and outward orientation. Views on market-oriented policies have converged recently to a set of policy principles that are termed Washington Consensus or Post-Washington Consensus. According to Danny Roderick of Harvard University, the universal principles of sound economic policy consist of allocative efficiency, macroeconomic and financial stability, and social inclusion. Allocative efficiency requires protection of property rights, contract enforcement, rule of law, market-based competition, appropriate incentives, liberalization of foreign trade, and liberalization of foreign direct investment. Macroeconomic and financial stability requires sound money, prudential supervision, fiscal sustainability, and current account sustainability. Finally, social inclusion requires social safety nets and targeted poverty reduction programs. According to Roderick, market economy is embedded in 5 sets of non-market institutions, institutions protecting property rights, regulatory institutions, institutions for macroeconomic stabilization, institutions for social insurance, and institutions of conflict management. In a market economy, entrepreneurs need to have adequate control over the return to the assets, and private appropriability of the returns to accumulation is an essential requirement for achieving allocative efficiency. Thus, the economy must have appropriate institutions protecting property rights. Since markets fail when participants engage in fraudulent or anti-competitive behavior, every market economy needs to be overseen by regulatory institutions such as Competition Authority, Banking Regulation and Supervision Agency, Energy Market Regulatory Authority, and also, let us say, Public Procurement Authority. Establishment of appropriate institutions that will attain sound money, prudential supervision, fiscal sustainability and current account sustainability are requirements for achieving macroeconomic stabilization. On the other hand, social insurance in a market economy is needed to make it compatible with social stability and social cohesion. Finally, as institutions of conflict management, market economies need the rule of law, a high-quality judiciary, an effective police force. So these are the requirements for having a relatively well-functioning market economy. How does a country like Turkey acquire the institutions required for running a successful market economy? During the period prior to 1980s, little attempt was made by Turkey to establish a successful market-based economy. Turkey started to place emphasis on market-based reforms with the stabilization measures of 1980. With the help of the World Bank and the IMF, Turkey introduced major trade and financial sector reforms during the 1980s. Trade liberalization was followed by capital account liberalization in 1989, when almost all obstacles to international capital movements were abolished. During the 90s, the policy of further opening up the economy was pursued with the aim of integrating into the EU. With the establishment of the Turkey-EU Customs Union on January 1st, 1996, Turkey adopted the EC competition law, established the Competition Authority, adopted the EC rules on protection of intellectual and industrial property rights, established a patent office, and started to harmonize technical legislation concerning industrial products, the establishment of sound conformity assessment system and market surveillance structures. With the 2001 crisis, Turkey learned about the importance of sound money, prudential supervision, and fiscal sustainability. These are indeed remarkable achievements, but more needs to be done to have a successful market-based economy, since Turkey as of 2010 faces problems securing the protection of property rights, contract enforcement, rule of law, current account sustainability, labor market flexibility, social inclusion, liberalization of services and network industries, and elimination of technical barriers to trade. According to the World Bank's Doing Business 2011, on the ease of doing business, Turkey ranks as the 65th country among the 183 countries considered. According to Transparency International, corruption is a major issue in Turkey. Turkey ranks as the 56th country among the 178 countries considered. Turkey realizes that the main factors that will ensure convergence with the living standards of advanced countries is acquisition of high-quality institutions and following universal principles of sound economic policy. Turkey is aiming for EU membership. Turkey's quest to join the EU has deep roots in Turkish modernization and associated orientation in Turkish policy toward the West, in particular toward Europe, starting in the 18th and 19th centuries. It is argued that the historical and institutional trend of modernization has locked Turkey into a pattern of domestic and foreign policy orientation that is difficult to break or reverse. During the pre-accession period, Turkey will adopt the acquis, which comprises not only the community law in the strict sense, but also all acts adopted under the second and third pillars of the European Union and common objectives laid down in the treaties. By adopting the acquis, Turkey hopes to acquire the institutions guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, human rights, respect for and protection of minorities, the existence of a functioning market economy, as well as the capacity to cope with competitive pressures and market forces. Concentrating on economic aspects, we note that Turkey hopes, by adopting the acquis, to acquire the institutions for running a successful market economy and to follow the universal principles of sound economic policy that I tried to emphasize. Through this policy, Turkey aims to increase its income per capita over time and close the economic gap between it and the rich countries in the world. Furthermore, once a member of the EU, Turkey expects to be eligible for EU agricultural subsidies, structural funds, benefit from migration of Turkish labor to the EU, and derive also welfare gains from monetary integration. Finally, Turkey expects to participate in the EU institutions and EU decision processes. Although EU accession seems to be the first best policy option for Turkey, the achievement of EU membership in the near future seems to be infeasible. First, there is strong opposition to Turkish membership in the EU. According to Eurobarometer, among all the candidate and potential candidate countries, Turkey's accession generates the most disapproval. 48% of the respondents is opposed, even if Turkey complies with all the conditions set by the EU. Only 39% of the respondents are in favor of its entry to the EU. The strongest opposition of the accession of Turkey is observed in Austria, 81%, Germany, 69%, Luxembourg, 69%. Second, there is a lack of strong supporters other than Britain for Turkish entry into the EU. The opposition of France and Germany make full Turkish membership an unlikely prospect in immediate future. Austria and France agree with Germany and plan eventually to hold referendums on the subject. Many of the smaller EU states, including Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and Baltic countries, are divided or marginally in favor of Turkish accession in official and government circles. Both Poland and Romania have publicly stated their support for Turkey's application, but are wary of the competition for EU subsidies that would be provided by such a large country. Italy, Spain, and Portugal tend to favor Turkish membership, seeing it as restoring some semblance of balance within the EU between the Mediterranean and Northern Europe, but share some of the broader concerns regarding economic, political, cultural, and security issues of Turkish accession. Third, it is argued that the EU does not have the capacity to absorb Turkey as a member, and that the dream of political union in Europe will have to be buried forever with Turkish accession. Fourth, there are geographical and cultural arguments against Turkey's EU membership, as emphasized by former French President Giscard d'Estaing, current French President Nicolas Sarkozy, and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. It is argued that Turkey is not a European country, that it has a different culture from the European one. Fifth, it is stressed that the cost of accession to the EU could be substantial for Turkey, and that Turkey will face difficulty meeting the costs associated with its share. Sixth, there is fear from the unknown, as emphasized by Dominique Moisy in his recent book, The Politics of Emotion.
Summarizing, Turkey is seen, as pointed out by many, as too big
too poor, too far away, and too Islamic society. If EU accession in the near future will not materialize, what are the alternatives for Turkey-EU relations? I summarize the alternatives under 4 headings: Euro-Mediterranean Partnership, European Neighbourhood Policy, Union for the Black Sea, and Privileged Partnership. So I will summarize each of them rather briefly. The Euro-Mediterranean Partnership. The EU's policy towards the southern Mediterranean countries is guided by the Barcelona process based on the Barcelona Declaration, including subsequent policy documents approved by the Euro-Mediterranean ministerial meetings under the Barcelona process. In 2008, the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership was relaunched as the Union for Mediterranean. The Union for the Mediterranean is maintaining the acquis of its predecessor. In 2009, the Euromed trade ministers endorsed the Euromed trade roadmap beyond 2010. According to the roadmap, the Euro-Mediterranean Association Agreement should be turned into deep and comprehensive free trade agreement. I will emphasize this point a bit more later on. Thus, the Euro-Mediterranean trade relations should move beyond tariffs to remove non-tariff barriers and to include regulatory issues so as to allow real market access and contribute to a more favorable investment climate. Now, European Neighbourhood Policy. In the wake of EU's enlargement towards Central and Eastern European countries, the European Commission introduced a new policy, the European Neighbourhood Policy, ENP. The overall objective of this policy is to draw both old and new neighbours closer into the EU's political, economic and cultural realm, short of full membership. The EU aims for deep and comprehensive free trade agreements for all ENP partners, including the behind-the-border elements, such as technical norms and standards, sanitary and phytosanitary rules, competition policy, enterprise competitiveness, innovation and industrial policy, research cooperation, intellectual property rights, trade facilitation, customs measures, good governance in the tax area, company law, public procurement, and financial services. Now the Black Sea synergy. Besides the Mediterranean, the Black Sea area is also at the center of new initiatives. Based on a communication from the European Commission, the EU Council in May 2007 welcomed the Black Sea Synergy, a new regional cooperation initiative, and invited continuation of the EU work on an enhanced and coherent EU engagement in and with the Black Sea area. The Black Sea Synergy was officially inaugurated at a ministerial meeting in Kiev in February 2008. It is the first EU initiative to look at the region as a whole, and it aims to strengthen regional cooperation both within the region and the EU. EU is interested in extending the European space of peace, stability and prosperity based on democracy and human rights and the rule of law. In short, EU's objective is to pursue Europeanization of its eastern frontiers through state building. To achieve these objectives, the EU plans for cooperation in a wide number of sectors of cross-border activity, such as transport, energy, environment, fisheries, migration, science and technology, as well as promoting the rule of law and fight against organized crime, security, democracy, human rights, and civil society cooperation. Now, the privileged partnership. This is the kind of relation that is emphasized for Turkey by various groups in the EU. Although EU leaders agreed on December 16, 2004, to start accession negotiations with Turkey, the negotiating framework adopted by the Council in 2005 caused considerable doubt over EU's commitments. According to the negotiating framework, the negotiations are open-ended. In addition, the fulfillment of Copenhagen criteria two other conditions for Turkish membership in the EU have been introduced, namely absorption capacity of the Union and the condition that Turkey should be in a position to assume in full all of the obligations of membership. The absorption capacity is about the EU. It has nothing to do with Turkey. It refers to capacity of the goods and service markets, capacity of the labor market, capacity of the EU budget to absorb new member states. In addition, it refers to the capacity of EU institutions to function with new member states, capacity of society to absorb new member states, and capacity of the EU to assure its strategic security. Although the Copenhagen criteria set fairly clear and objective benchmarks for accession countries, the same is not true of absorptive capacity. The concept is rather vague. Thus, Turkey, even if it would satisfy the Copenhagen criteria, it could fail by reference to absorption capacity of the EU. Alternatively, negotiations might fail on the ground that Turkey has failed to assume in full the obligations of membership. If accession negotiations would fail at some point in the future, the opponents of Turkish membership to the EU maintain that there is need for an alternative final destination, such as privileged partnership, to prevent the catastrophe. This is the view expressed by the French President Giscard d'Estaing, French President Nicolas Sarkozy, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, German Minister of the Interior Wolfgang Schäuble, Austrian Chancellor Wolfgang Schüssel, and Austrian Foreign Minister Ursula Plasnik. But privileged partnership is also a new concept in need of developing. The privileged partnership will surely extend the existing EU-Turkey customs union. Although it is not clear how it will extend it, one aspect is certain. It will not cover all aspects of structural and regional funds, the common agricultural policy, and free movement of workers. Thus, in the proposed framework, Turkey would be excluded from agricultural subsidies, structural policies, and free movement of persons. Exclusion will also most probably encompass Turkish participation in the EU institutions and decision-making processes. The above considerations reveal that the EU is not interested in letting neighboring countries of the EU to benefit from agricultural subsidies, structural policies, and also free movement of persons. Exclusion will encompass their participation in EU institutions and decision-making processes. The EU is interested in signing deep and comprehensive free trade agreements with the neighboring countries of the EU. Now the concluding remarks. In the case of Turkey, I mentioned this, EU membership is a first best strategy, but the chances of its realization in the foreseeable future are rather low. Consideration of the alternatives reveal that Turkey would not fit easily into the Euro-Mediterranean partnership, neighborhood policy, or the Black Sea synergy. Privileged partnership could essentially be negotiated as long as it would help Turkey to acquire the high-quality institutions and help Turkey to follow the universal principles of sound economic policy. But such an agreement would require the renegotiation of the 1963 association agreement, that is the Ankara Agreement, and Turkey might be reluctant to do that. Officially, Turkey is not interested in any relationship with the EU short of full membership. Turkey in the future will probably stick to its current EU policy and carry on with the accession negotiations, however the negotiations may take. Now you can ask whether it is a right policy. I have some doubts about it. If Turkey is going to carry on with the accession negotiations, however long the negotiations may take, it would be advisable for Turkey to concentrate its efforts on using the acquis to acquire the high-quality institutions and follow policies that would make Turkey adopt universal principles of sound economic policy as soon as possible. So that is the reason why I try to emphasize the sound economic policy. The acquis on economic policy could be divided into two parts. sound economic policy acquis, and other parts of the acquis. Now, Turkey in the near future could adopt and implement the sound economic policy acquis and leave the adoption and implementation of other parts of the acquis on economic policy for later periods when the prospects of membership in the EU would increase. With this, I conclude my presentation. Now the floor is open for...
Let's first thank Professor Togan.
Yeah.
We have just under 20 minutes, so we have plenty of time for what I'm sure are many questions. That was a very interesting and stimulating talk about a very important subject. So, please, anyone have any comments or questions? Anyone wish to? Okay, gentleman here, start us off.
Everybody seems to be talking about membership or future membership, but nobody seems to have the courage of saying, okay, we don't want membership, let's just move on with our own business. Is that not an alternative?
It may be an alternative, but I mean, acquiring the institutions is rather difficult task, the institutions that I talked about. And the technical help that EU could provide would be extremely helpful to have the institutions established in Turkey. And with the institutions established, there is chance that Turkey will catch up much faster than without. So I will try to emphasize again the points I mentioned about the sound economic policy. And sound economic policy is not easy to achieve in a country like Turkey.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
If Turkey achieves a sound economic policy, then would Turkey need to be a part of the EU?
It may consider it as appropriate, it may not consider it as appropriate, that depends on the future. But in the meantime, it is just a, how should I say, rejecting the the kind of proposal that you had is, has not too many benefits, I think.
Question. Okay, gentlemen, back then after.
I think it would be better to start this discussion. First of all, by establishing is what is the cost to this profit account of our current relation between Turkey and European Union? And are we really benefiting from this relationship, or are we just harming ourselves?
Let me see. Can I? How do I go back all the way to the? Yeah, I did. Now, I will try to answer this question as follows. Now, Turkey is intending to follow the market economy, and it tries to achieve the convergence of its income per capita with the rich countries of the world by following this market economy principles. Now, following market economy principles is not easy. I mean, during the 50 years prior to 1980, there was little attempt, I mentioned. But then I said, it started with during the 1980s with the help of the World Bank and IMF. Turkey introduced some reforms. They were major, important reforms. They were trade and financial sector reforms. Okay. Now, trade liberalization is not also easy to achieve, and trade liberalization to a large extent was achieved through the customs union. So customs union 1996 is very important, and this has been achieved with the help of the European Union. Now, I emphasize, Turkey adopted, I mean, it didn't have any competition policy. Competition policy is an essential requirement for having a market economy prior to the customs union. So it adopted the EC competition law, established the competition authority, adopted EC rules on protection of intellectual and industrial property rights. So there was no protection of industrial property rights. There was no protection of intellectual property rights in Turkey. I mean, there was a law from the Ottoman time, but the enforcement had major problems. Then Turkey established a patent office, started harmonize the technical legislation concerning industrial products. That's a very difficult task, and it has done quite a large extent. Turkey has achieved this to a large extent through the customs union. But there are certain problems that are still remaining. I mean, Turkey has, as of I try to emphasize, problems securing protection of property rights, contract enforcement, rule of law, current account sustainability. This is external debt problems, labor market flexibility, social inclusion, liberalization of services and network industries. So it is a major problem to liberalize the service sectors, to liberalize the network industries, and also, as mentioned, technical barriers, eliminate technical barriers. So the 96 agreement, I mean decision with the EU, had major impact. And then the accession process started. The accession process has been extremely helpful for Turkey towards moving in the right direction. And it has achieved a lot. It has really indeed achieved a lot.
We have a question here. Thank you very much for this very instructive talk, and I appreciate the arguments which you have given, but I did not quite understand why you did not consider further the other alternatives to the alternative of a privileged partnership with Black Sea Synergy and the Mediterranean Union and Neighbourhood Union. Perhaps you can say something more about this.
Yeah. Black Sea Synergy covers the region, Black Sea region. Russia, it is included. Georgia, Azerbaijan is included. And compared to these countries, Turkey is more advanced in its alignment to the EU acquis. Similarly, in the Mediterranean region, you have countries like Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, Syria, Palestine, and all these countries, Lebanon, they have also advanced. They have also signed free trade agreements, but compared to these countries, Turkey is more advanced in its alignment. Now, neighborhood policy, for example, Ukraine. Ukraine is intending to sign a free trade agreement, what we call the comprehensive, deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, covering most of the aspects of EU accession, in a sense. But compared to that, it is also possible. I mean, Turkey is more advanced than most of the regions, most of the countries in the region, like Moldova and all these countries. And privileged partnership, as long as it would help us to move in the right direction, that means acquiring the institutions and following the right policies, that could be a possibility. So it is possible to sign a free trade agreement, comprehensive and deep, what we call, free trade agreement with the EU, that would cover major aspects, but this will require the renegotiation of the Ankara Agreement. Ankara Agreement is the only agreement that we have, in a sense, on economic policy. And Turkey is rather reluctant to renegotiate that. But it is conceivable. I mean, that's a possibility.
How important is the existence of Turkey in customs union for European Union? And what do you think about Turkey's attitude towards if you don't accept us into EU and we can leave custom union also? Do you think this harm Turkey much more than European Union?
I think it would harm Turkey more. It would harm Turkey more. So customs union doesn't have too much problems. I mean, Turkey has 14 years have passed, and we have managed to a large extent moving in the right direction. Customs union has been very, very effective, and Turkey has benefited a lot. The customs union, through the customs union, EU has benefited also, but the benefit that Turkey derived probably are quite a lot.
Okay, someone right at the back there.
My question is not too much regarding the economics, but given that the sound economic policies are implemented and the obstacles the EU is setting us as a member are or a full member, would you personally think that this would improve the cultural image of Turkey? Because in the last few months, especially in Germany and France, there have been many Islamophobic political agendas being set. For example, Angela Merkel talking about how multicultural experiment has failed and so on and so forth. Do you think these can be overcome with economic policies?
Let me try to emphasize this. The cultural issue is a very important one. I mean, from the European side, it is a major problem, and they are afraid. They are afraid of the unknown. I mean, they don't know very much what Turkey is, and they are afraid. The usual people are afraid. And the points expressed by Sarkozy, President Sarkozy or Merkel, they reflect the fear of the population that is in the society. So I mentioned about the Eurobarometer. They asked the following question. Eurobarometer is a really important one to have the opinion of the people. They asked the question, if Turkey, they said, if Turkey would fulfill all the conditions of membership, would you like to have the country as a member of the EU? Now, 48% say no. Austria says 81% say no. We don't want it. So they are really afraid. Germany is 69%. So if there is such a case, it is very difficult for a chancellor, Merkel, for example, to express something else. So they have to reflect this point. So this is in a sense something that we have to look at over time.
I recognize in your presentation perhaps the tone of contribution by Bernard Hoekman from the World Bank, where he says that for the neighborhood countries, you need to have a selective adoption of the acquis so as to fit the developmental priorities of the countries in question. But then I wondered, what are the policies that would contribute, because you've mentioned a huge agenda, planning of its agenda is indeed very comprehensive.
Yeah.
Concretely, what would be the chapters of the acquis, or perhaps you wouldn't want to use these categories, but to focus on other categories, to sort of older priorities? What do you think Turkey should focus on to achieve this sound economic management?
Thank you for the question. What is important is the competitiveness. I mean, as long as Turkey increases its competitiveness in the world markets, That would be a major issue, I mean, major achievement. And the European Union, at that time, the European Economic Community, in 1957, when they signed the agreement, they emphasized the competitiveness. So the major point was follow policies that would increase the competitiveness of these countries. 6 countries it was at the beginning. They were so successful that all the rest of the Europe wants to join. So it started with 6, and by now 27, probably it will be more in the future. So competitiveness is an issue. I mean, adopting all of the rules that Dani Rodic mentioned would be a major task for Turkey, but choosing those that will increase the competitiveness of the country, emphasizing those would be enormously helpful.
There was a question. While we are meeting the demands of this process, do we get support about the PKK issue? Isn't there a principle that requires collaboration on security?
I didn't mention. I mean, I didn't mention the political aspects. I mean, I mentioned at one point the rule of law and all these minorities, and these are Copenhagen criteria. But I didn't go into details of the political issues, so I tried to emphasize the major economic issues. And I think it is also the view that I will do that now. So.
Can you mention something about the English phrase or saying about if there is a will, there will be a way, and aren't we kind of giving up too early in the full accession, moving into these partnerships? And some of these partnerships is really acknowledging a backward step, for example, customs union, free trade agreements. And aren't we, could we consider also that in some of the economic policies, some of the EU countries are not really doing that well, especially recently with Greece's experience and some of the Eastern European countries. And so if there's kind of a will, there might be a way to close this gap for economic and cultural making.
If there is a will and if there is time, if everything can be done, of course, but we'll see how things will develop. So, thank you.
Okay, we can squeeze one last question in. Okay.
According to the remarks of political leaders, the most opposing countries seem to be French and Germany, and there's a high Turkish population in these countries. Do you think there's a relation between this opposition and the Turkish population in those countries?
Indeed. I should say it is the case. I mean, what the view of Turkey they have is based on the people they see in those countries. And so they have their own views about the Turkish population, Turkish society. So it has an effect. It has a major effect, of course.
Before we thank Professor Togan again, there definitely is a will and therefore a way I hope things will move forward in the future. I'd like to thank the library staff who worked very hard to make sure these talks are successful. And I'd also like to inform you all that our third and final lunchtime lecture for this semester will take place on Thursday, the 16th of December.